Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Danvat Pranam Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय यशोदानन्दना जय ब्रज जनरञ्जना जय ब्रज जनरञ्जना जय यशोदानन्दना जय ब्रज जनरञ्जना जय ब्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी जयो राधा माधवा जयो कुंज बिहारी जयो राधा माधवा जयो कुंज बिहारी जयो गोपी जनवल्लभा जयो गिरिवरधारी जयो गिरिवरधारी जयो गोपी जनवल्लभा जयो गिरिवरधारी जयो गिरिवरधारी जयो यशोदानन्दना जयो ब्रज जनरञ्जना जयो ब्रज जनरञ्जना जयो यशोदानन्दना जयो ब्रज जनरञ्जना जयो ब्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी जयो कुंज बिहारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जयो कुंज बिहारी जयो राधा माधवा जयो कुंज बिहारी जयो राधा माधवा जयो कुंज बिहारी ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम्। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
धन्यवाद। You can hear me? You all can hear me?
No, Prabhuji. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. वन्देहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगणा ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachalam, pangum langayate girim, yat kripa tamaham bande. Shri Guru Dinatarinam, Paramananda Madhavam, Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Okay, so we are on second verse of Nectar of Instruction. The first verse spoke about the qualification of a advanced devotee, of a spiritual master. One should be willing to tolerate the urges of anger, mind, tongue, speech. Speech means don't speak in a way that is offensive to others, or um, don't speak things which are not conducive. Um, because the general tendency is to speak even when there is no topic. Just sometimes we just want to speak um, just for the sake of speaking, just to avoid silence, just to feel like I'm present. But there is no point in doing that. If it is necessary, speak. And then the demand of the mind, which is um, in beginning stage of Krishna consciousness, there is attachments. So the mind demands many things, and to be able to tolerate the demands of the mind. And then there is anger. When the mind demands are unfulfilled, naturally anger will arise. So one must learn to tolerate the anger. And also we see that the greatness of a personality is estimated by one's ability to tolerate anger or provoking situations. And there is a very beautiful example of Bhrigu Muni, where the sages asked Bhrigu Muni to find out who is the Supreme Lord, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Who is the Supreme Lord? So Bhrigu Muni first went to his father, who was Brahma, and then he did not um, bow down to Brahma. Brahma became angry that why didn't he bow down to me? He is my son, and he should respect. Why he is not respecting me the way what is expected, the respect expected out of him. So Brahma was a great personality, so he tolerated, but he became angry. Then he went to Lord Shiva, and then he spoke harshly about Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva came. Lord Shiva is also son of Brahma. I mean, spiritually, he is in a spiritual position than Brahma, but um, um, in this word, like how the creation takes place, he came through Brahma, through the forehead of Brahma. So he is technically, materially, in a way, the brother of Bhrigu Muni. So, and Shiva is elder brother. Actually, he is the fifth son. The first son that were produced were the four Kumaras. And then when Brahma desired to procreate through the four Kumaras was unfulfilled, Brahma became angry. And that's how the fifth son was Lord Shiva. Out of anger, Lord Shiva came from the forehead of Brahma in this particular pastime. So, so his elder brother. So he naturally has that love and affection. He wanted to embrace Bhrigu Muni, and Bhrigu Muni put his hand forward and said, "Stop." And Bhrigu Muni said, "You are uncultured man. Um, you put ashes on your body and you have snakes on yourself." And he used some kind of harsh words against Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva became angry. But he also kind of, with great difficulty, he tolerated, because He's my younger brother, so he tolerated. And then Brigumuni went to Vishnu, and this time the offense was even more grave. With Brahma, the offense was just mental. In a way, he didn't bow down, but in or physical of mental offense. And then with Lord Shiva, the offense was verbal. He used harsh words. But with um, Lord Vishnu was resting on the snake, uh, Sankarshan. And Brigumuni went inside and he kicked Lord Vishnu on his chest. And Lord Vishnu, with tears in his eyes, he begged forgiveness from Brigumuni. And he said, I'm very sorry. This is Lord Vishnu telling Brigumuni. I'm very sorry that my chest is so hard that it may have hurted your lotus feet, because my chest is so hard and your feet are so soft. And Brigumuni immediately concluded that who is Supreme Personality of Godhead. So see the tolerance of Lord Vishnu. There is no need of tolerance because there is no anger. Tolerance is required when there is anger. Then you have to tolerate. But in case of Lord Vishnu, there is nothing like that in a way materially. There is spiritual anger. If you disturb a devotee of the Lord, then the anger of the Lord is beyond imagination, just like the anger of Hiranyakashipu. When Prahlad Maharaj was disturbed, a devotee was disturbed by a demonic person, and the Lord becomes angry. And similarly, there is a pastime in Chaitanya Charitamrita where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked the devotees, Shivas Thakur and other associates, to go out on the street and perform Sankirtan, perform congregational chanting of the holy name of Lord Krishna. So the ruler, Qazi, was a Muslim, and he got many complaints that these Hindus are openly chanting the names of Lord Krishna, and they would consider it very offensive because of the egoistic mentality. They could not take it. So like today, Malti Prabhu was giving class here, and she was mentioning that as a person advanced spiritually, he does not distinguish between a Christian or a Muslim. He is broad-minded, and he knows that there is one God, and he is happy to see anybody engage in service of God. That's the pleasure. He doesn't see the differences, but he see the connection point that he is a devotee of the Lord. Maybe there are different forms and ways people worship. So, and we see that Srila Prabhupada was very broad-minded, because ultimately, like one person asked my spiritual master that he was, there were different cultures like Hindus and Muslims. So my spiritual master says that a dog can recognize a master whether the master is wearing a suit or wearing in a night dress or wearing just a towel, or in whichever way the master looks, a dog can recognize. Likewise, when we meet different people of different spiritual background, we respect the point that this person is God conscious, and we don't see the differences, because ultimately Krishna is worshipped by Vishnu and Krishna is worshipped by Christians in different names and forms, but ultimately there is one God and one Supreme Lord. And that makes a spiritual person very broad-minded and very harmonious. And we see that Srila Prabhupada, today is actually Easter also. So, this topic came today. So, one reporter asked Srila Prabhupada that, have you come here to convert Christians, to convert all the Christians in America? And Prabhupada said, no, I have come here to make them serious Christians, a better Christians. So Prabhupada's principle was very, very broad. He was happy to see any spiritual minded person. There is one of the associate of Lord Chaitanya, actually one of the direct servant of Lord Chaitanya. His name was Raghunath Das Goswami. he wrote a book called Manasiksha, which is basically instructions to the mind. And there he mentions in the first verse, the beginning verse of Manasiksha, he says that one should respect all spiritual minded people. He says Lord Krishna, Vrindavan, the residents of Vrindavan, the spiritual masters, and then he says Brahmanas, and any kind of God conscious person one should respect. That is broad-mindedness. And in our little center here in Grand Rapids, um, Krishna's arrangement, many people came and they did many works, but we found that most of them were spiritual. Actually, most of the work done by people here, one was like a very wonderful Christian, and one was a very wonderful Muslim. And he comes and he does his work. These days, Ramadan is going on, and he comes and then he's fasting for the whole day. So for 1 month, they don't eat. They eat only in the evening. And he has such respect for us, and we have such respect for him because we are centered around God. In a way, we are both trying to serve the Lord in our own, by our own means, and we don't see the differences. Unlike the egoistic mentality of Hindus and Muslims and India and Pakistan, and this is all false ego basically. But we see that how this person is have full faith in God. They call him by the name Allah. And that's all right, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Namna Makari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktish. He says the Lord had hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. He doesn't say he has only one name. But Srila Prabhupada also mentioned that the name which most closely describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. That's why we call him Krishna. But he has millions of names. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes in great detail that there are secondary names and there are primary names. And then primary names are more important to be chanted than secondary names. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself says that the name like Allah, they are secondary names, but ultimately is the name of God. Primary names are like Krishna or Vishnu, Devaki Nandan, Yashoda Nandan, Rohini Nandan, Govinda, Radharaman, and anything connected to that, Gopinath, anything connected to the Lord and his devotees are primary names. And primary names must be chanted. The means in this age of Kali is just the holy name of the Lord, the chanting of holy names of the Lord. And then there is another person who would work a lot for us, and he's a Christian. And me and him will have very wonderful discussion about how the pleasure in this material world are temporary and they lead to suffering. And the example of mirage means it's there, but it's not there. Likewise, material happiness seems it's there, but then you chase after it, and what comes out is misery. So ultimately, the teachings is same, and that's what our Vedic scriptures itself, Bhavishya Purana explains that Lord sends his many representatives like Christ and Muhammad and various other. These are all Shaktivesh avatars or Buddha, Shaktivesh avatar, who come according to time, place, circumstances to uplift one closest to God. None of them is God, whether it's Christ or uh, Muhammad. They're all prophets or devotees of the God. They would say like either I am the Banda of Allah, like a messenger, or I am the son of God. But Lord Krishna himself says that I am God. Others say I am messenger. He says, Aham sarvasya pramatta sarvam pravartate. So, but the principle remains the same, that one should respect a spiritual minded person from any phases of life. I don't know why he came here. So, I was discussing about one should learn to tolerate. when the mind desires, and we saw how the greatness of a person is estimated by one's ability to tolerate the provoking situations. And we see how Vishnu, there was effortless tolerance. In a way, it's not like he had to tolerate, but it was he who he is. That's the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he would not tolerate demoniac people. But Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma even had to make some effort to tolerate. So tolerance is very important. So that's why if one wants to become a spiritual master, actually that's what spiritual master means, to give Krishna to others. If one wants to become a spiritual master, then one can do it successfully if one can tolerate the urges of the mind, urges of the anger, which is unfulfilled, which arises because of unfulfilled desires from the mind, of the tongue, which want to eat palatable foodstuffs, then speech, which want to speak when not required, unnecessary. And also Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains that speech we should be careful about our speech. It should be pleasing, it should be beneficial, it should be truthful, and it should be from Vedic scriptures. This Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, 17th chapter, the austerity of speech. And then the belly and genitals. So one should tolerate. These are all urges, but one should tolerate. This was the first verse, and the second verse is Atyahara Prayasascha Prajalpa Niyamaagraha Janasangas Chalaulyam Shadbir Bhakti Vinashyati. These 6 things will destroy bhakti. And the first thing that is mentioned is Atyahara, which is over engagement of the senses, unnecessary engagement of the senses for sense gratification. Sense gratification is required, Prabhupada says, for living, but over engagement of sense gratification becomes difficult to make progress in spiritual life. Like you overeat, then we sleep more. If we want to cut on sleeping, then the way to cut on sleeping is eating less. They are directly connected. Atyahara also means over accumulation of anything. Prabhupada gave an example of a bag of rice. Do whatever is necessary. Everything comes under Atyahara. And Atyahara results in prayasa or over endeavor. When we have Atyahara is basically greed in a way for anything and everything, for food, for wealth, for enjoyments, accumulations, everything comes under Atyahara. And Atyahara leads to prayasa. Now, when we have such desires, then we work very hard. And when we work very hard, naturally we have less time for Lord Krishna. And because the work is done not without desires, the work is done specifically to over engagement in sense gratification, naturally we'll become weak, we'll become entangled. Nature of this word is as entangling. In everything we do, we get entangled if it is not centered around serving Krishna. And then there is Prajalpa. Prajalpa is highly detrimental, and we were discussing the various kind of Prajalpas, like offending, or newspapers, or TV serials. They're all kind of Prajalpa. And this is a couple more slides on Prajalpa. Talking without reason about other people is extremely adverse to devotional service. Best is we don't talk about others. Like many times I see, if I would call in India earlier, nowadays it doesn't happen anymore, then they'll be like, these children, maybe they got into such successful job, or these children, maybe they were divorced, or these children and these and these and these and this, or maybe about this person did like this to them and like this. So when there is no good topic to talk about, there is no topic to talk about Krishna. And then when the speech is uncontrolled, that we have to talk about something, and then Prajalpa will come out. And that is detrimental to our Krishna consciousness. So my spiritual master says one can see how much advancement one has made in one's Krishna consciousness based on how much distaste one has developed for Prajalpa, how much one hates such topics. If we are attracted towards these things, then we have to tolerate, and make endeavor to advance in our Krishna consciousness. And this Prajalpa is dovetailed in Krishna's service. Like we want to read something, then read scriptures. We want to watch something, then you can watch dramas. There are many dramas, Krishna conscious dramas by devotees, or Krishna conscious movies like Little Krishna and various other varieties. There is one wonderful movie on Srila Prabhupada, the life of Srila Prabhupada, is called Abhay Chalan. Very wonderful series, many episodes. And there are movies on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, on Prahlad and Haridas Thakur, and there are so many different. So one can use those means if one has a tendency to watch or tendency to read newspaper, then read scriptures. And if you have a tendency to speak about others, speak about Lord Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, any of the incarnation of the Lord. So one has to dovetail those propensities. Um, and then rest of the time, a serious devotee, he stays quiet. If somebody is talking about other things, and if you have no control over what they're talking, and the environment is adverse, just stay quiet. No need to contribute. And definitely talking about others is extremely adverse to devotional service. Many people talk about others to establish their own reputation. So many times we want to talk because we want to show that how learned I am, or fill in the blank, something for me to be respected. But there is no need. If there is something important, speak. Otherwise, stay quiet. So many people talk about others to establish their own reputation. And another reason people talk about others is because they derive pleasure by speaking about others. Like this person, he got a job in this company in this position. So basically they want others to become envious, and they are envious, that's why they are speaking. Or this person got divorced, so they are deriving so much pleasure by saying how the other person suffered. They don't express it, but there is some joy, some internal joy there. So everything is highly materialistic. Being envious, some people are accustomed to discuss others' character, and they question others. This person is like this person is like this, and they are speaking like this because they are envious. um, um, so one person came to me, I think a couple of weeks back, and he said, these people, they have so much desire to eat, and they eat a lot, and something, he was in a critical mood of some other devotees, and I said, Prabhu, you are speaking these things because you have such desires. So Saraswati Thakur said that whatever fault we see in others is because we have such faults, and what we see in others is a reflection of our faults in others. So envy means we don't like someone, and when we don't like someone, then we like to hear bad about them, and we like to speak bad about them, and both are highly detrimental. There is some joy when we are envious of somebody, and somebody says that this person, like if you're envious of person A, and person B comes and say person A did like this, and then it gives us joy, and then we contribute to the person A about person B. So not very detrimental. So this is all because of envy. The mind of those who are busy in such topics can never be fixed on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. It is not easy to fix our mind on Lord Krishna unless we live a relatively pure life. To the extent we do that, we can focus on Krishna. He should not talk about others in a way that is detrimental to anyone. We can talk about others in a glorifying sense. That is very good. Like the character of a particular devotee, his spiritual advancement. So speaking about devotee, speaking about Krishna is good. but the talk about other devotees should be in a glorification way, genuine glorification, like glorifying our Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, Raghunath Das Goswami, or Rupa Goswami. So wonderful. He should talk about others only whatever little is necessary in his Krishna conscious family. Um, Within family, Prabhupada says one can talk about others only little, whatever is necessary, um, um, but not in a mood to criticize or out of envy. So one has to be careful. So this is some reflection from Srila Prabhupada's purport. Then something more. Debates arises only from a desire for conquest. Debate is not good. Um, um, when we enter into a debate, then we enter with the mood that I want to win over. When the mood is to win over, we the other. I mean, it's a ego fight basically, and is considered as one form of prajalpa. So what will actually transform the heart of other person is not the logical argument, but it's the compassion, it's the love, it's the feeling for the other person, that we really are well wisher of the other person, and those feelings are transferred, and that person is moved by us. So Srila Prabhupada would also many times enter into debate, but he has that mood of not just establishing what he says is right, but he wanted to guide them. So then it is beneficial. But there's a thin line, and it can come on an egoistic platform also, that I cannot be defeated. Then that becomes detrimental. It is extremely abominable when one is speaking with a desire to conquest. Fault finding arises only from imposing one's own bad habits on others. This we discussed. When we see faults in others, it's because we have them. We may be able to see them, we may not be able to see them. Um, it is said that a pure devotee is adokshadarshi, and that's what we want to become. Adokshadarshi means he doesn't see fault in anyone. Um, One time, one devotee asked my spiritual master that how is it that everybody loves you so much? And my spiritual master replied that that's because I don't find fault in anyone. So when we don't find fault in anyone, everybody will love us actually, and naturally we will love others also. But the reason we like some people and we don't like some people is because we find some fault in others. And when mentally we may not speak them, but when we see some fault in others, naturally we'll have not good feelings for them. And when we don't have good feelings for them, how Paramatma works is they will sense it. We don't need to be even in front of them. They will sense it. And they will also not have very good feelings for us. And that is detrimental for our Krishna consciousness. Actually, the first offense to the chanting of holy name is to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagate the holy names of Lord Krishna, to blaspheme those, which basically, in other words, it is Padma Puran says sadhu ninda. Sadhu ninda means blaspheming a devotee. So blaspheming, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur elaborates, sadhu ninda also means you just don't like a person. That is also sadhu ninda. Like you see a person and you don't feel joy in your heart. That is also sadhu ninda. So one may say that I am not committing and I am very careful trying to avoid the 10 offenses, but there are so many offenses happening which we are not even aware. And that's a reflection of our consciousness, and it's deep rooted. So the only actual way we can actually become purified from all this fault finding mentality in our beginning stage is being conscious that, okay, I'm so polluted. So finding fault in oneself, the moment we see fault in others, we should try to find fault in oneself, that this is who I am. And then beg for the mercy of Lord Krishna, Srimati Radharani, Nityananda Prabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada, spiritual master, beg their mercy to remove this tendency within me that I want to see fault in others. Because actually, by seeing fault in others, we are harming only ourselves. So my spiritual master gives an example of a hard iron rod. It's like you are holding a hot iron rod and pointing to others, but our hand gets burned. So the only person who suffers is we ourselves, and this is the karmic reaction. What goes around comes back. So when we see fault in others, naturally others will see fault in us, and then we will be very much kind of unhappy. Why are others seeing fault in me? And then we may criticize also. Why are others finding fault in me? But the root cause is we ourselves. The root cause of all our trouble is not in the environment, but it's within us. And that's why they said that transformation comes from within us. When we work on ourselves, the whole surrounding around us will change, because Maya Dakshina Prakriti Suyate Sachara Chara. This material nature is working under the control of Lord Krishna. Maya, and she is a servant of Lord Krishna. So everything is happening. It's a cycle. Everything comes back. So the lesser and lesser we develop, and this is comes under this all fault finding, even mentally, physically, verbally, or you name it. This all comes under Prajalpa. They are part of Prajalpa, and this is kind of very deep rooted habit. And imagine the reason somebody find fault in us is because we find fault in them. Um, um, but a pure devotee, because he's pure by heart and he doesn't see fault in anyone, everybody loves him. And when he has so much blessings from everyone, he can happily chant the holy name of Lord Krishna. So that's why very, very important. But yes, we are who we are, and we cannot artificially change, but we can at least pray. If, like my spiritual master says one more thing, that when we see fault in others, that's because we want to see fault in them. And it's a very big loop. In a way, we see fault in somebody and they will find fault in us, and then we will be like, why they are doing that to me, and why they're not treating me properly, and etc. And then we will further criticize, and then we get further criticism, and then it goes on in the loop. So highly detrimental. So one has to cut the loop. How one cuts the loop? The moment our mind becomes agitated, one should pray to Krishna to please let me come out of it. My spiritual master says, let me see good qualities in the other person. So Krishna consciousness is about conscious of our consciousness. We should see ourselves, and then we should have a right intelligence to see what is good and what is bad in me, and then take shelter of Krishna to remove what is bad in me. And this is a path of purification. So path of purification is you depend on Krishna, and Krishna will purify us. It is not up to us. So we just keep on chanting Hare Krishna, and we endeavor. And that's why there is, in the beginning stages, there is a struggle phase, because we are struggling with our own anarthas, with our own consciousness. But Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that one who takes shelter of me will easily be able to cross beyond it. But to get that intelligence of when I am wrong, because if the intelligence is not sharp, then when we are seeing fault in others, or critical mentality, or not a good consciousness, then we will start acting on it. So our intelligence kind of is not sharp enough. So that is a material life. Before we become a devotee, that's what we have been doing for since time immemorial, is whatever intellect mind presents, and that's what shows that we are helpless in a way. The only help we can receive is from hearing and reading from the mouth of pure devotees, because when we hear, our consciousness is transformed, at least temporarily. We need external help. Srila Prabhupada gives an example that when a person is bound, he cannot free himself by his own endeavor, because he is bound by both the hands. A person is bound around the tree with both the hands and legs. No, what can he do? He is bound. And this is the nature of people in this material world. That's why they are called Nitya Baddhas. Nitya Baddha means eternally bound. and they are helpless. They are simply tossing in the waves of material nature. Um, um, but a Siddha devotee or a perfected soul helps through his Vani, and that sharpens our intellect. And then we see our consciousness through a sharpened intellect. And then when we see that what is within me and what I should be does not match, then we take shelter of Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna helps. So this is a path of purification. Fault finding arises from imposing one's own bad habit on others. This is also very important, that fault finding is very, every statement can be spoken a lot. Fault finding arises only from imposing one's own bad habit onto others. And this is very common example I give, that when we see Lord Krishna with the gopis, and we may find fault in him because we will reflect our material consciousness onto him, and then we will imagine that I also want to be with so many girls. Now he is with so many girls, so this is a wrong thing, so he is a wrong person. And it goes to spiritual master also. When we so the reason I want to be in that situation, the other person must be trying for that situation for the same reason. I have some desire, and because of this I want some sense gratification, and if the other person has scope for sense gratification, must be for the same reason, like myself. So we are simply imposing our material consciousness onto others, and that's why we find fault. Saraswati Thakur said this. This should be given up in all respects. Speaking falsehood is another form of useless talk. Lying. Um, Another form of useless talk. Speech in the form of blaspheming sadhus is the source of great inauspiciousness. This is like sure short way to fall down, is blaspheming sadhus, criticizing against a devotee. I have seen in my own life devotees who were very critical about other devotees. Like, one thing is, we find fault mentally because of our disturbed consciousness, and then we don't act on it, and then we pray to Krishna. That is all right. That's a path of purification. But if we see fault in others and then we speak to others in a critical mood, or we talk to others how this person is actually a demoniac person, like that, if we actually end up in blaspheming sadhus, trying to kind of um, really put them down with our actions. Mentally, okay, Krishna will purify us if we take shelter of Krishna. But verbally, what to speak physically, it's highly, highly detrimental. And one example is Gopal Chapala. He actually verbally, and so there was a devotee, Shivas Thakur. He would perform whole night Sankirtan with Lord Chaitanya and their associates. And Gopal Chapala came, and he was envious because he was thinking that why am I not allowed in this Sankirtan? Why only them? Why can't I join their group? And they were highly respected. So Gopal Chapala could not take it. Why they are so much respected? So he became envious of them because of they are getting what he wants, but they don't want none of these things. Mahaprabhu and associate, they just want to be absorbed in Lord Krishna. But Gopal Chapala is an envious person. He became envious of them because they don't want anything other than Krishna. So they were getting all the respect and so much absorption, and everybody loves them. So they were getting all the benefits because they were trying to absorb only with Lord Krishna. But Gopal Chapala wanted for himself. So he reflected his fault onto others, and he's like, they have so much opportunity for sense gratification and I don't. So he wanted to kind of find fault in them and something like that. So he actually physically blasphemed Shivas Thakur, and he, yeah, he took some action to criticized Srivas Thakur, but he had to pay a heavy price. He had severe health issues. And I've seen my own life that devotees who actually end up in physically blaspheming devotees, they were taken out of association. They lost the desire to associate with devotees. They lost their absorption in the holy name of Lord Krishna. And then what happens? Then it becomes very difficult actually. So it's highly inauspicious. If one wants to attain devotion to Lord Hari, then he should make a vow like this: in this life, I will never blaspheme sadhus. Devotees are sadhus. By blaspheming them, all one's virtues are destroyed. Actually, when one blasphemes, all good qualities are lost. So it is said that devotees can give Krishna and devotees can take away Krishna also. So they give Krishna by, their association, their words, sharing of scriptures. In various ways they give Krishna. But if they are displeased, they can take away Krishna. They can take Krishna away from us also. They don't take. Krishna goes away from them because Krishna loves his devotees. So that's why this is also one form of Prajalpa. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Rupa Goswami is carefully warning us. It is not to create a threat. It is not to create fear. It is just education that, okay, things that I should be careful about, things I should not be careful about. That's why it is also said that one should not go close to senior devotees of the Lord. Because if one goes very close to them, then in the beginning it feels very good that I am going so close, but then one will end up in finding fault because of familiarity. And then Krishna consciousness becomes not really joyful, it becomes difficult. So one has to be very careful. So this is some form of Prajalpa. Okay, so now we have finished Prajalpa. So we saw Atyahara, over endeavor, and then we saw Prayasa, Atyahara, over accumulation, greed, over enjoying, which is not necessary, just for the sake of enjoying, not for Krishna's service. Everything comes under Atyahara, and that requires a lot of endeavor. Then and then the third is Prajalpa, and we saw so many forms of Prajalpa. Prajalpa is really big. And then Niyamaagraha. So let's see, Niyamaagraha. Conditioned souls are eligible to attain a very exalted position from a very low position. So yes, we may not be, we are not, I mean, I'm talking about myself, not pure devotees of the Lord, but we can become pure devotees of the Lord in this life. So the kind of the mercy is there. We are eligible to attain Shuddha Prem, pure bhakti, pure love in this lifetime. So conditioned souls are eligible to attain a very exalted position from a very low position. Doesn't matter what our past is. It is said that every sadhu has a past, every sinner has a future. It means every sadhu, he may be very sinful in previous life, may engage in so many wrong activities. It doesn't matter, because Krishna is all purifying. And every sinner has a future. Somebody who is performing sinful activities today, they may apparently be materially happy by performing sinful activities, but they are going to pay a heavy price. We may not see it, but it's not about what we see. The material nature is very fair. It reciprocates according to one's karma. So the conditioned souls are eligible to attain the highest position. Between these two positions, which is low and high, or conditioned soul and pure platform, there are many other positions. Each position is a gradual step. So we may be in a very low stage of Krishna consciousness, and we may want to become a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. So these are two extremes. Like one is highly advanced and one is very beginning stage. So there are many stages in between that are described as bhajana kriya, anartha nivritti, or removal of anarthas, then steadiness or nishtha, and then ruchi or taste, and then ashakti or attachment to Krishna. and then bhava or emotions for Lord Krishna appear, and then prema, love appears. So in that way, there are gradual steps. Each position is a gradual step. Each gradual step is a distinct level of advancement. So every gradual step, it's like attaining one state, one state, one state. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. Krishna consciousness is a scientific process. Means you can know how much advancement we have made, and how much more, and how much more. Naturally, at some point of time, devotees read about these different stages and they have clarity, and then based on the symptoms of their own Krishna consciousness, they can understand which stage of Krishna consciousness they are in. So that's what this is again for Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he says each position is a gradual step. We are gradually progressing towards a higher stage. Each gradual step is a distinct level of advancement. Okay, like staircases. Like I have made this much advancement, one more step, one more step, one more step. Each and every gradual step has different prescriptions and prohibitions. So there is a particular type of sadhana at anartha nivritti, then the sadhana may be little different at nishtha, and it may be little different at ruchi, and it may be little more different at ashakti. Now, basic sadhana remains the same, which is chanting 16 rounds and following the 4 regulated principles. That is very much the same, but what changes is the meditations, and mainly like our contemplations during chanting, they changes, and there are recommendations and there are prohibitions in those stages. So one time I asked Sagar Maharaj, like one of the sannyas in ISKCON, I asked him that I wanted to share my meditations with you about in the holy name. And he said, well, Prabhu, I don't know if I can answer or not on those, because it's highly individualistic, very individual, those things. So there is no one right thing, but actually it's Krishna's inspired. So basic principle chanting 16 rounds remains the same, but then there are different prescriptions and prohibitions in different stages of advancement. In the eternal state of the living entity, prema is the only prescription and envy is the only prohibition. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says at the stage of purity, full purity, there are only one prescription, one prohibition, which is love of God. Okay, just love Krishna and don't criticize anyone. Envy is the only prohibition. The living entity imbued with prema and devoid of envy is the shelter of eternal rasa. Although rasa is of 5 varieties, still they are one undivided spiritual truth. The rules of that position are not to be discussed here. So this thing I cannot discuss in this platform. But the simple idea is at this stage of our Krishna consciousness, chanting 16 rounds, following 4 regulated principles, and try to hear the name of Krishna as much as possible. Try to focus on listening the mantras. And the mantra will reveal everything to us. And once mantra take us deeper, you can access that what do I say? You can access that much mercy, or those inner contemplations. Whatever Krishna gives, just take it as Krishna's mercy and absorb yourself in that. Ultimately, our focus is to hear the name of Lord Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada says that the name of Lord Krishna will reveal everything to us. This is the most powerful means of advancement. So the devotees whose minds are fixed on chanting and remembering Krishna's glories in pure love have no taste for activities prescribed for lower stages. Although they are not attached or bound to follow the prescribed rules of the scriptures, they sometimes follow out of their own accord. So basically, I mean, it's little complex, but niyama means rules. Niyama. And agraha means to. So there are 2 words. One is called agraha and one is called agraha. So Niyamaagraha is broken into 2 words. One is Niyamaagraha and Niyamaagraha. So when you add a before a word, it has a opposite meaning. Like santosh, asantosh, satisfied, unsatisfied. So gives the opposite meaning. So niyama is rules and regulations, and agraha means to follow. So niyamagraha is to follow the rules and regulations, and niyam agraha is to not follow the rules and regulations. So in simple words, niyamagraha means okay, how do I explain? If we don't follow the rules and regulations which are prescribed for advancement Krishna consciousness, then we'll not be able to advance. Like rules and regulations are like no meat, onion, garlic, mushrooms, no intoxication, smoking, alcohol, no uh, gambling, discourse, gambling, and no illicit sex. Illicit sex includes pornography, masturbation, and all different forms of um, um, self-sexual imposition. They all come under illicit sex. So this is called, so these are simple basic rules, like live a simple life centered around Krishna, and um, um, don't engage in activities which are only for my pleasure. And these are actually sinful activities, and they have heavy reactions. Sometimes we may be able to see, sometimes we may not be able to see, but there are severe consequences. And as we advance in our Krishna consciousness, we will see how severe the consequences are of these sinful activities. So that's why there are some niyamas, because if we don't follow these rules, then even though we may be chanting or may be trying to advance, because of the reactions from the sinful activities, it will cause many impediments, and it will become very difficult to make serious advancement in our Krishna consciousness, those who are not following these rules and regulations. Yet at the same time, if some of the principles are very difficult, then the knowledge that this is highly detrimental is required. It is not to discourage one, or one should not think that no, leave Krishna, I cannot take to Krishna consciousness, this is impossible. It's not to discourage, but yet knowledge is given, and try to make some steps, try to attain this situation immediately or gradually. It's up to you, but the fact is they will have an adverse effect nonetheless. So that's, now if somebody thinks, well, I love Krishna, I will chant, and these rules and regulations, it's okay, it doesn't need to be followed, then the devotional life or the progress will not be very smooth. It will be checked. There will be many impediments in one's Krishna consciousness. So this is one principle of Niyam Agraha, which is to reject rules and regulations which are conducive. And another is to accept rules and regulations which may not be prescribed for our stage of Krishna consciousness. Like during the higher stages of Krishna consciousness, there are certain recommendations. And then if we artificially think that I am at that stage and I can do that sadhana that is prescribed for higher stages of devotional life, and I will do it today. So this is like artificial imposition that I am very advanced devotee. And once we try to do that, so niyam agraha means eagerness to follow rules and regulations which are not prescribed for our stage of Krishna consciousness. Then also our devotional life is checked. So that's why the devotional life is recommended to be under guidance, where one is protected, that one is doing the sadhana recommended. So that's why there are two words, niyamagraha and niyam agraha, or eagerness to follow rules and regulations that may not be conducive for our stage of Krishna consciousness, or rejecting the rules and regulations that are favorable for our stage of Krishna consciousness. And this becomes Niyamagraha. This is the principle of Niyamagraha. So, any questions so far? on either Prajalpa or Niyamaagraha. Are the two principles clear?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then maybe we can discuss 5 more minutes to see what we have.
Hare
Then
Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Srisha Mataji, then Pranam Mataji.
Yeah, for controlling Prajalpa and all, like Prabhuji, like when we are in the situation that we don't like it, how can we come out of from that?
Oh, okay. So you are asking, is it okay to come out of the conversation?
And how can we come out? Like, are there any suggestions?
Depends, Mataji. Always coming out may not work because the other people may feel offended also. But what I personally do is when I'm in a situation, I internally chant the holy name of Lord Krishna, and then I avoid that association for the next time. But if I'm put in a situation, then I don't want to kind of um, be rude to anyone, but I protect my internal consciousness and I avoid those people the next time as much as possible. Does that help, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. How can we improve to determine like all the time be constantly avoiding those situations? Prabhuji? So how can we get the strength to overcome all this?
Well, by a strong desire. If you have a strong desire not to be in such situation, Krishna will gradually facilitate. And till the time the situations are unavoidable, in spite of your desire, the circumstances are like that. Some level of tolerance and simultaneously praying to Lord Krishna internally to help us. Then gradually Krishna will improve our situation. How Krishna improves our situation? That is inconceivable. Krishna can inspire others not to talk such things. Krishna can transform others, or Krishna can help us not to put in similar situations frequently. So we basically take shelter of Krishna and we tolerate if it is unavoidable. But yes, a strong desire will help us. Does it answers?
Yes, Prabhuji, exactly. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat
Then
Pranam.
Shweta Mata.
Prabhuji, I met a devotee yesterday. She was like she regularly attends the Kirtan temple, and she loves to hear Krishna Katha, so many things like she is trying to practice. But in her family, like as a tradition, they have a like they eat non-veg. So, but after coming to Krishna consciousness, but she is the only devotee in her family. She can follow the all the regulative principles and things, but it, she almost had tears in her eyes when she said that her spouse or her kids are unable to follow that, and for them she had to cook also, which she is like almost frustrated and disgusted to do. But how can, like, at least, so when we hear so much and when we try to practice so much, but the other external factors are preventing us from following the path, it is not only they are consuming the restricted food, but also she had to be a part of it in the cooking also. So what can be the best thing to be done here, Prabhuji?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate situation, Mata. Very difficult situation to be in. The best she can do in this situation is I mean, Srila Prabhupada has given strong statements on such circumstances also, but being more practical in this situation, she should just pray to Krishna to help her. The thing will be possible either they agree to eat outside, not in the home, then that is very nice. If they cannot give it up, or if because of association they are transformed, so she is not incriminated. And to change that situation, what she is in the situation right now, she should cry in front of Krishna, and she should pray Krishna to help her in this situation. And then Krishna will give her some intelligence and make some arrangement so she can talk. Yeah, these situations are kind of very severe, but rest assured, Krishna is a person and Krishna knows us. Now, according to Shastra, it is mentioned that anybody who cooks is also incriminated, along with those who eats, or those who sells, or those who buys, or those who slaughters, or those who transfers, or fill in the blanks. 7 kind of people are incriminated in meat eating. One of that is those who cooks. So those things are there, but the devotee may not be incriminated because Krishna knows the helplessness of a devotee. And Krishna can take one out of those situations if Krishna so desires. So she can continue what she's doing and pray to Krishna, and Krishna may very soon help her come out of this situation. And this we learn from the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anybody, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, pray to Krishna and Krishna may help her. Pray to Jagannath and Jagannath may help her. So we depend on Krishna Mataji. Until the time being, she can continue and wait for the favorable circumstances.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Anything else? Okay. If nothing else, then we can end also for today and then discuss the last 2 topics maybe next week if we cover all of them. Okay. Vanchakalpatarubhesha kripa sindhubhe evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavendra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Dandavat pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam.
Prabhuji,
Thank you.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.